liver oil, you're going to have problems, different kind of problems. They won't be oral problems. They'll be anal problems. But, you know, you'll be farting like a fish. So we had to go in and do a little correction there, you know. And you see, it's not that you don't make mistakes. It's not that I haven't made mistakes with clients. It's only that you notice that you make mistakes that's important. But anyway, so the next time I had somebody sent me in, I decided this was not the best approach I could take. So this guy came in and he said, I have to quit smoking, you know, that he said, I have a terrible problems. He said, they think I have lung cancer. And he said, and I have to quit, and I have to quit today. And I thought, well, okay. So I put this guy into a trance, and he was really a good hypnotic subject. I guess there's something about death that motivates you. You know? And what are they doing out there? Oh, I'm going to say that's the smallest rowboat I ever saw, but it's a rowing boat, you know, like they race in. I was going to say, Jesus, you can't even have room for the fish in there. But the object to that is to go very, very, very fast, not to stop and do anything. I watch those guys in the rowing races in the colleges, and I keep looking at those boats going, they have no purpose other than going somewhere really fast for a short period of time. I mean, you couldn't cross the ocean in one of those. You know, the first wave that came along, you would be toast. I mean, you can go up and down rivers, but once you hit the rapids, you're fucked. You know, so I don't know who started out building those, but it had to be college people. Had to be some scientist somewhere going, we could make these really dysfunctional boats that go very fast, and then we'll race them up and down in really still water. So anywhere there's really still water, we could go very, very fast, but you can't even bring lunch. The things are so small. But anyway, this guy came in, and he was such a good hypnotic subject because I put him in trance, and I had him go down, and then what I did is I lifted up both his arms, because a lot of people do this thing when they do hypnosis. They go, your arm is getting lighter and lighter and lighter, and it will lift and lift and lift. And they do this for 45 minutes or an hour, and it's such a pain in the ass. You could just pick up somebody's hand and tell them not to put it down. Bang. And it's there. You already have catalepsy. If you don't make it easy for people, then, you know, you make it hard on both of you. So, but I said, I lifted up both his hands, and I told him that I lift this finger for yes and this finger for no. And I asked him the question. I said, I want to ask your unconscious mind a question. And I want to know, first, can it answer me yes? And it went like this, and I got a nice yes signal. And then I said, now, what I want to know, if it's all right, if you and your unconscious separate for a moment and let me speak privately with your unconscious mind. Now, I have no idea what that means, by the way. But it sounds so logical. But anyway, he gave me a yes signal, and I said, okay, send your conscious mind away. I said, because I want your unconscious and I to get together and see if we can arrange something so that your conscious mind can solve your problems easily. And when your conscious mind is gone, I want you to let your yes finger raise. And I sat there for a minute, and all of a sudden he went like this. And I went, are we alone? And I got a yes like that, and I thought, cool. So I said, now, you know John more than I do. So what I want you to do to help John to quit smoking, quitting is too hard. So what I want you to do is to go back through his whole life and erase every cigarette in every image, everywhere in his mind, so that he never started smoking. So therefore, he won't have to quit. He won't have to go through withdrawal. And even if he sees a picture of himself with a cigarette in his hand, the cigarette will be disappeared. Because if there is no problem, then there won't be any problem. That way he can get healthier faster and not have something new to struggle with. Is this okay? I got a yes signal. And then I said, okay, when you've made all the adjustments, go through all the bits and pieces of all the memories, all the photographs, all the ideas, and erase from his mind the concept of having been a smoker. And when you're done, let your yes finger rise. I got a yes signal. So I said, okay, now, when he's ready, and only when he's ready to carry out all these suggestions, let his conscious mind return and wake him up. And I said, begin now. And he sat there for a moment, and all of a sudden he woke up. And I said, how do you feel? And he said, I feel fine. Where am I? And I said, you're in my office. I said, you came in because you wanted some hypnosis to help you relax. And he went, yeah, that's it. Relaxation, that's why I'm here. And I said, good. I said, you seem to be quite relaxed. He goes, oh, yes, I feel very relaxed. And I said, would you like a cigarette? And he said, oh, no. I said, I don't smoke. I took that as success. Oops. Sent him home. I get the most irate phone call I've gotten in almost my entire career. It's his wife. She said, I don't know what you did to him, but he's driving me fucking nuts. He lies. And I went, I beg your pardon, and he says, he sits here across the table telling me I shouldn't smoke. I never started smoking until after he'd smoked me so much I couldn't stand it anymore. I had to start smoking. And now he claims he never smoked. The fucking liar. Telling me was I came to see you to help him quit smoking. And I thought, Yes, he quit smoking, but now he's going to have a near-death experience because his wife's going to kill him. So I said to her, I said, ma'am, it's part of the treatment. What I'm doing is having him pretend as if he doesn't. She said, I showed him pictures of us both sitting on a boat smoking. And he said, I was smoking and he wasn't. He's a liar. He's a fucking liar. Tell him. Tell him. And I said, ma'am, I said, I'm just having him pretend so he can have an easier time quitting. I said, go along with him. And she said, I'm not going to go along with some big lie. Now he's going to start lying to his boss and lie to everybody and lie to the doctors. He's totally out of control. And I said, oh, yeah. Yes, he's totally out of control. I said, I said, would you rather have him die of lung cancer, or would you rather have him fib a little bit so that he doesn't feel like he has to smoke? That's also a double bind, by the way. Nobody is going to say to you, oh, I'd rather have him die, unless they really hate him. Now, the thing is I do this all the time. For example, when I was selling cars, I took one of these big, beautiful Mercedes because it was my hobby for a while. I was experimenting, designing a sales training course, and so a friend of mine had a Mercedes lot. Middle of the oil crisis. Nobody is buying cars. Never seen such depressed people in your life. The salesman in this car lot, man, were so depressed. I walked in, they all were like this on their desk. And I got in one of this. I got in this big 450 SLC, big silver car in the middle of the showroom, opened the doors, drove the car out, came back 2 hours later with 4 people, gave one to each salesman, and had him sign them up and buy one of the cars. All of the salesmen came up to me afterwards and they said, excuse me, they said, where did you go? How did you find these people to buy cars? You can't find anybody who wants one of these cars. I said, certainly not in the showroom. I said, I went to the country club. I drove the car up in front of the windows, opened all 4 doors, walked inside, and said, who wants to feel good for the rest of their life? Do you know, I've never gotten a no answer to that yet. Because people said, I do. I said, come with me. I sat them down in the cars, and I said, look, I said, the oil crisis isn't going to last forever. The price will go up. There'll be plenty of gas. This has got a 50-gallon tank, Fuel injection. It gets decent enough mileage. I said, how far do you have to drive to feel good? The question is, you don't need a Toyota. You can get killed in a Toyota. I said, all you have to do is you run a Toyota over with a Mercedes, and you won't even notice. I said, but a car like this, I said, it may go down in value for a couple of years, but then it'll go up in value. So it's not just a car. It's a lifetime of cars, because you'll be able to trade this in and get another one in 5 years, and another one and another one. This is a lifetime of enjoyable driving and safety. And is it more important to save a few pennies, or is it more important to be alive? Do you see my point? You see, to me, part of what you have to do with every client is to convince them. It's not enough. If you think about it as therapy, then you're trying to fix something that's wrong, rather than get them to be smarter about how they live. Now, is there somebody in here? I want to demonstrate something, and I really would like one of you in here who has something that you think about in your past, and it makes your life worse because you think about it way too much. You know, is anybody in here got one of those? You don't have to say what it is. I'm just going to make it so it doesn't bother you so much. Yes, sir. Do you? Yeah. Will you come up here and sit down? Thank you. You're a brave soul to come up here with no... What? Well, unless I fuck it up, you know. Anyway, what's your name, since you have a no-name tag? Sven. Well, oh, yeah, but I'm supposed to be able to read it in your pocket? Oh, look at that. He's a doctor's Sven. What kind of doctor are you? Chemistry. I love chemistry. I do. I think chemistry. I think chemistry is really the answer to everything. Because in chemistry, everything boils down to this. You're either put stuff together or you take things apart. And that's pretty much how I think about everything. Because how is it possible that something bothers you when it's in the past? Well, it's because you haven't taken it apart. But you see, the nice thing about the brain is the brain understands the most basic concepts. And to me, see, my new book, I have a couple of new books that I've been working on. One I've been writing for a few years is called The Truth About Lies. And well, that's the title of the book. I would have finished it by now, but I accidentally left it in California. So it's very close. As soon as I get back to California and get it, it's just a matter now of editing it. But in the book, The Truth About Lies, one of the characters, because it's actually kind of a fiction book. It's a story. But one of the characters' names is Dr. Moore Chemistry. And Dr. Moore Chemistry's function inside of the piece of fiction is to be able to serve the function of getting people to separate the way they feel about things from the things that they're feeling them about. Because at the time that certain events occur, they make you feel bad. And you see, it's our tendency to keep associating bad feelings with bad events, just like to associate good feelings with good events. The only difference is that those things can actually get in the way of the future. Now, sometimes that's a good thing. For example, if you have a bad experience walking across hot coals, then maybe you should say to yourself, don't walk across hot coals. Right? Now, I mean, to me, that makes sense, because I don't know about you guys. I've never really walked out in the front yard and found hot coals everywhere and said, geez, I need to walk across these. You know, I would have a tendency to go out the back door. That would be my choice. But you know, it's a personal thing. I know there's lots of people out there now thinking that if they walk across hot coals, that somehow or other they're going to learn to face all their fears. Now, if that were true, then I would be doing fire walks. Unfortunately, it's not true. That most people, once they walk across hot coals, then they walk across hot coals again. And they walk across hot coals again and again, and the rest of their fears stay fears. Because, you see, the piece that's missing is the piece that makes things generalize. Now, the problem with having unpleasant experiences, sometimes they begin to generalize to your future when they are about your past. That if something bad happened to you and you feel bad about it, your tendency is to go back and feel bad about it again. But we're going to try this in a slightly different way. Now, you don't have to tell us what this event is, but I'm going to ask you in a minute, but not yet, okay? I just want to explain to you what I'm going to have you do, and then I'm going to have you do it, okay? Now, what I want you to do, it goes like this. Okay, the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to go to the end of this event. In other words, the last thing that you can remember about it. Not yet, not yet, not yet. I'll tell you when, okay? Right. And listen to the language, okay? Because I'm cheating already. Okay, remember, I'm the biggest cheater there is. Okay, so when I say remember the last thing about this, that's an embedded command. Okay? Think about it. I'm saying start at the end. Okay? That's an embedded command. I'm telling him don't do this anymore. Okay? Hypnotically, remember, how do you defend yourself against language? Well, you understand it. But I know so much about language, there is no defense. Right? I can tell you about it. It's going to work anyway because I'm going to stack it up so many different ways. But I also want to give your conscious mind a way to deal with anything in the future that's like this. Don't make noises, okay? I'm busy here. See that foot? It belongs on the ground. It won't do that then. Now, the thing is if you start at the end of an event, just like a movie, and run it backwards. People talk backwards, so that you start at the end, run it to the beginning. Now, when you get to the beginning, I want you to go right back to the end, and then go to the beginning again. And I want you to keep doing this faster and faster and faster till it literally blurs. Now, at the point where it's so blurry you can't tell what's going on, I want you, so you have a big blurry movie going by, backwards. Suddenly what I want you to do is to open up something like this, so that it opens up, and I want you to see your own future and all of the circumstances that you would spend time feeling bad about this. I want you to see yourself in the picture feeling good, and I want you to run it forward and run it bigger and bigger till it just takes over the other thing, but runs in the opposite direction. You understand? Okay. Because this is the intellectual part of it. Now, here's the tricky part, is I don't want you to do this consciously. Yet. I love it when you tell people, I don't want you to do this consciously. They go, See, because you see, I want you to try something. I want you to be in just the right state to do this. So what I want you to do is I want you to hold your fingers up like this, okay, in front of you. There's two fingers. Hold them about this close together, okay? All right, and I want you to look straight between them. Hold them up in front of your eyes. That's right. Look straight between them. And as you look, I want you to slowly move your fingers just a little bit closer together. A little bit closer together. And as you look between them, slowly, your eye focus is going to begin to blur. Because what we're going to do is use blurring as a good thing. If you can blur the space between your fingers, then you can blur any idea. And any idea that's not worth having is worth getting blurry. And now your fingers are going to get a little bit closer, and a little bit closer, and then very slowly I want you to close your eyes now. That's right. Go ahead. Close your eyes. There you go. And just drop down. And your fingers are going to keep getting closer, and you can feel them. But inside your mind, as the electricity begins to move between your fingers, I want you to charge up the movies, and I want you to begin to look, and I want you to see that image and start right at the end and begin to see it so that everybody walks back there, hear them talking backwards, and run this backwards inside your mind right back to the beginning, and then go back to the end and run it to the beginning again, faster and faster each time till it really begins to blur inside your mind. And the more you run it backwards, the faster it'll go, because what it's going to do is undo things at the neurological level. We're going to run it backwards. We're going to do the part of chemistry where you separate things out. We're going to separate, because running it backwards, it'll never feel the same as running it forward. But yet every image is exactly the same. This is the miracle about what the human mind can do. Now, at the moment your fingers touch, suddenly you're going to start to see yourself having more time, being more relaxed, feeling freer, being smarter, being happier, and all the things that come with personal freedom. Because you're going to begin at the moment your fingers touch. You're going to put something new together. You're going to point to a new direction. Getting very close now. So it spins faster and faster and faster backwards, and you're getting very close now. Fingers pulling, getting closer and closer. Here we go. It's getting very close now. Dun, da, da, dun, 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 spinning and spinning and spinning. Unconsciously preparing, and here we go. Any moment now. Dun, 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 dun. There we go. Now spin it forward. And spin it forward. Only now you're going to begin to see it going forward into your own future. Because your future is suddenly going to feel so much brighter. You're going to have an unexplainable sense of well-being in the certainty that you can program yourself. And as the image spins forward, it's going to slow down to normal speed so that you can begin to have a normal future, one unhampered by past unpleasant experiences. Because it's only by using your brain with a sense of deliberateness that we call it thinking. And the thinking man can think of ways to do new things, just like the thinking woman can always think of new things to do. Women are in fact much better at that than men. Men will wear the same shoes for 20 years. But sometimes, as somebody said to my wife yesterday, what did you learn in the seminar, she asked, and the person looked at her and said, we learned we need new shoes. Well, sometimes you need to cover old things with new things. And it may be your body, it may be your feet, and sometimes it may be your ideas inside your mind. Because as you look at this now, I can tell by looking at the color in your face that something feels different. Because as you think of all the situations in which you used to feel bad, I think you've gotten the point to new things. So very slowly, I want you to let your hands go down. Only at the rate and speed that your unconscious solidifies these new learnings so that they'll stay with you for the rest of your life. And perhaps your unconscious can think that maybe there's a few other things you need to run backwards as well, and a few things you need to run forward. Sometimes it's time to get things to blur out of vision. Sometimes it's time to let go your past and move into your future. It's only from the satisfaction and the knowledge of how easy it is to reprogram the brain. I always like chemistry because you put this with that, then it turns this color. But you see, at the bottom line, chemistry is the rule, not the exception. Because below the neurological level, everything is just chemicals, hormones, enzyming, all of those things that go inside of human beings that can make them feel good or make them feel like they don't need to anymore. That's right. And while your hands go down slowly, you're changing not just this idea, but the other ideas that it's time to change. Because as your hands approach your knees now, you're going to have a sense of growing freedom. And you're going to have a sense of relief. Because we struggle with these kinds of things for years. But since we don't know exactly how to program our mind, sometimes it doesn't matter how hard we struggle. We just can't let go until you know the secrets of how the mind works. Now, I sent away once years ago for the secrets of the mind from the Rosicrucians. And the Rosicrucians sent me all these things, telling me secret things you could do. But you see, this is even more secret because the Rosicrucians don't even know about it. In fact, neurolinguistic programmers don't really know about it because I made it up this morning. But you see, I know how to make these things up because I know the secret of synapting. I know how to synapse forward, and I know how to unsynapse something when it doesn't need to be synapted together no more. Because sometimes you just have to know more about something. Because once you don't do it anymore, then you need to put something in its place. The rule of thumb is to create a void and to fill it with something wonderful. Now, double that feeling. That's right, double it again. Double it once more. What the hell? That was tough, wasn't it? Okay. Yeah, well, Jesus, we all have to pay a price, you know? Mr. Warm, Mr. Empathetic, but never genuine. Let me ask you to do something. Now, what I want you to do is to think about the thing that bothered you. Does it bother you? No. Are you sure? What did I tell you? I'm the biggest cheater there is. But you see, if I cheat people out of their problems, I figure it's okay. It's better than cheating them out of other things. I had one guy one time who sold me stock in a company that didn't exist. And I was quite upset about that. And he took money from all kinds of people. And then he left the country. And he thought that was enough. But you know what? I believe in karma. And I'll show you what the evidence is of all the places and the entire planet, this guy could have gone. He went and hid in a hotel that happened to be the next place I was doing a seminar. I just went down to do the seminar. I got in the elevator. It was at 7 o'clock in the morning. They started this thing at 8, and I decided to go down and have breakfast. 7 o'clock in the morning, and I don't wake up well. You know, some people do, but I don't like morning. I don't even like the idea of it. You know, I do well over here because actually it's night where I live. So I come over here, I'm actually getting up at night. It's not day. So I'm pretty happy because where I am, it's actually night time. But this wasn't the case. Here I was, I got up, I got in the elevator, I stepped in the elevator, and I looked in the mirror like this at my eyes, and I was going, oh shit, my eyes are a little bit red, and I was going, okay, I can make myself feel good. I go, what can I think about that would make me feel good? And I looked in the mirror, and this guy stepped in the door, and the door shut. And I went, that'll work. And I turned around and I looked him straight in the face. And he gasped, probably because my hand was on his throat. And I lifted him up like this, and I said, I hope you have a lot of cash on you, so I don't have to kill you. And he reached in, and he pulled out a wad of fucking money like that out of his pocket. And I said, that's a start. I said, where's the rest of it? And he went, in my room. So I stopped the elevator, and I said, what floor are you on? Must be on my floor. Bang, and I hit the elevator, went back to my floor. I took him to his room, and he had a briefcase full of fucking money. And I said, that'll do just fine. And then I hit him a few times so that he would remember not to do this again. I have to admit, I hit him with the briefcase because I didn't want bruises on my hands. And then he fell down 3 stories. I threw him on the awning, though, but it did scare the piss out of him. And then once I threw him out the window, I thought, what if the wind is blowing and I missed the awning? And I thought, well, I could live with that. But then I went back to, when I went back to California, I actually had trouble finding out who all this people's money were, but I put an ad in how many people have been cheated by this guy, and it was amazing the number of people that he had cheated. And most of them were old retired people and stuff. If I'd have known who these people were, I would have taken him up to the 8th floor and thrown him out. Because there were people's retirement funds. I mean, lots of people cheat people out of things. All I ever cheat people out of is their unpleasant sensations. Did you get my point? Thank you very much. Well, I feel better. So is it time for a coffee break? What do you guys think? Yes? Yeah, this getting up at earlier stuff, you know. I think so. But what I was trying to find out is if they actually had coffee somewhere they could drink. Is there coffee somewhere, Ronnie? Okay, why don't you go check and make sure so we don't have to go and look at an empty table where the coffee could have been. Just sit down for a minute. Let's relax. While he goes and finds out if they're ready for us, because I'm so unpredictable, the hotels get wacky behind it, you know, that they think I should live on their schedule, and I think they should just stand by the door and wait till I'm ready. After all, they're working for us. We're not working for them. But, you know, so if it takes a couple of minutes, we'll just talk about anything else. Now, do you guys have any questions about this? Okay. Does it make sense to you why this would work? Pardon? Totally? Yeah, but you're easy. You believe anything, you know. I look at you and I go, your left eye is bigger than your right eye. And you go, really? See, this makes sense to me because, you see, I'm always looking for ways. I got up this morning and I thought, gee, I feel like doing something different. And I thought, now, because I know there's lots and lots of ways over the years that I've developed that make it so that people feel different. And I know we've done things where we run memories backwards to help people get through phobias. Well, I figure if running a memory backwards can get rid of a phobic response, it should also be able to get rid of the things where people think about stuff too often. The trouble with Phyllis was not just that she couldn't say no.
The coffee will be ready in 10 minutes.
See? Now we would have been standing out there for 10 minutes, you know, feeling impatient, going, that's right, and now we can sit in here and feel impatient. But you see, with Phyllis, it wasn't enough for Phyllis to just be in a double bind. Anybody, because I know that once Gregory made up the double bind theory of schizophrenia, that there were lots of guys like John Wheatland and Paul Voselvik and these people that believed if you put somebody in a double bind, this was enough. But it's not. It's not enough to just take somebody like Phyllis and say, tell me no, and she says no, and then she's done it. You also have to give Phyllis some attitude. And in order to give her attitude, you have to wipe out the years of experience. Because remember, the most important thing I ever learned from Virginia Satir was Virginia looked at me out of the blue one day. We were flying on a plane somewhere, and Virginia looked at me and she said, Richard, she said, what do you think the strongest instinct in human beings is? And she said, I'll bet you think it's survival. And I wasn't even thinking that. I was thinking it was sex. But that's just because I was 18 years old, I think. And because I was on an airplane and there were all these beautiful women walking around and I had nothing to do. And, but Virginia said, I'll bet you think it's survival. And I looked at Virginia and said, okay. And, Virginia said to me, she said, well, you're wrong. And I went, okay. And she said, the strongest instinct in human beings is to do what's familiar. When people are faced with unfamiliar situations, they will kill themselves rather than face the unknown. And most suicidals had, you know, my girlfriend left me, so I go and I hang myself in the closet rather than face a life without her. And it's even if you have a shitty relationship, most people will stay in it rather than go out and face an unknown life. So human beings will suffer. It amazes me that people stay in ghettos. Don't they realize that they stay in a ghetto, they're going to stay poor? Yeah, but it's all they know about. They don't feel comfortable in other situations. As soon as they're in situations where they feel unfamiliar. One of the guys I played music with when I was very young, because I was in a band called Zebra. It was half black guys and half white guys. Sorry, that was the name of the band. Actually, they made us change it because they said it was racist. But how could it be racist? We were black guys and white guys getting along just fine, right? And people said, you have a racist name to your band. And we said, okay. Hey. You know. But years later, I ran into one of these guys, and he was still living in the same house he had lived in when he was growing up. He still lived in this place called East Palo Alto, which is a fucking horrible ghetto. And when we were young and we lived there, I mean, that was all we knew. We didn't know any better. But as we grew up, we traveled all over the place. We played in Los Angeles and Las Vegas, you know, and we played in parties in the Los Altos Hills that were people that had so much money they knocked the wall out of their house, put a floor on their backyard, put a tent over it for a party for one night. But yet, in all of this stuff, he didn't learn that he could leave the ghetto. And by this time, he had 2 kids. And he was bringing them up in the same violence that we grew up. And I wouldn't put any kid through that. You know, I know that I lived through it, but a lot of my friends didn't. That, you know, where I grew up, there was just tremendous amounts of violence. There were heroin addicts all over the place, drunken winos all over the place. People were killing each other and robbing each other. And even though we saw all of that bad stuff, we saw the good side of life. We got a chance to get out and look around. I didn't stay there. But unfortunately, this guy had. And when I ran into him and And I said, where are you living now? And he said, I still live in the house. He said, my mother's died and left me the house, and I still live there. And he told me he had 2 kids, and I said, why don't you sell the fucking house and get out of there? And he said, I wouldn't feel comfortable in any other neighborhood. And I told him, I said, I think about what we went through as kids. Do you really want your kids to go through that? Just so that you can feel a little more comfortable? Would you put your kids through the fights that we went through? You know, the fact that both of us were knifed, not once, but several times. I said, you put your kids through that so you could feel comfortable? And he looked at me with this kind of sheepish look, and he goes, you know, I never thought about it that way. I said, that's just beyond selfish. Way beyond selfish. I said, you know, if you need some help, I'll help you. I said, I'll help you. And I said, why don't you move? I said, you know, I said, I live in a place that I just moved in a building full of condominiums, and I said, I'll help you get a loan. You could move in there. We have good schools, you know. I said, and he said, but what will I do for a living? And I said, what do you do now? And he said, well, I work for the garbage company. I said, we have garbage in San Francisco. Lots of it. You know, just go to the offices of the mayor. The whole place is full of it. You know. You can sit there and all you hear is garbage all day long. I said, but, you know, you don't have to do that. You can do anything. I said, what would you like to do? You could become a computer technician. You know, you could become a school teacher. And he said, well, I don't have any college. And I said, so what? So you go to college. They'll pay you to do that. You can get anything done if you put your mind to it. And he said, well, he said, how would I be able to get paid to go to college? I said, easy. I said, government loans. I said, there isn't, almost every government in the Western world gives you money to go to college, especially if you're your age. You know, they have all kinds of stuff. I said, especially in the U.S., we have more junky stuff like that. I said, you may have to lie a little bit. I said, I got college grants for being Greek, you know. They had money for, they couldn't give this money away. They were looking for somebody who was Greek. There was a thing in the bulletin board, so I went in and I went, hi, I'm Greek, you know, and they gave me the money, and I said, okay, thank you very much, you know, and threw a plate on the ground and broke it. You know, how are they going to check that, you know? I mean, they can't check it. There's nothing they can do. You just have to say, they go, do you sign this under penalty of perjury? You fucking right I do. Give me the money. Thank you very much. You know, anything to be able to educate yourself and to get on, but to put your children in a better environment. You know, when your kids are in bad environments, it's a responsibility of adults. These people, you know, that are leaving Afghanistan, I have nothing but respect for. If there's a fucking war going on, get your kids out of it. You know, I mean, you can always find another place to sell apples and peanuts. You know, I mean, you know, it's like, you know, one of the guys that I met in London was from Afghanistan. And in Afghanistan, he had been a medical doctor. In London, he sells dried fruit. And I said, well, you know, isn't there some way you can actually become a doctor again? And he said, yeah. He said, eventually I will. It takes a couple of years. I have to take classes at school and pass some tests. And he said, but in the meanwhile, he said, my children are safe. And he said, that's much more important. And I agree with that. To me, that's a practical decision. There are some times to fight, and there are some times to run. And, you know, and if you're not fighting your own battles. Now, this guy here, I don't know what he felt bad about, but I do know that he doesn't have to. This guy, doctor, didn't feel bad about the fact he wasn't a doctor. Once he made a choice, he made it so that he felt good about what he did. Because you see, a lot of times people have confused wealth with what wealth really is. Wealth is not measured in dollars. It's measured in happiness. Money is nothing but compact experience. You unfold the money, you get a sweater. You unfold the money, you get to take this course. You unfold the money, it turns back into things. But if you just keep it in the form of money, it's of no value at all. I know people who hoard all their money. They have millions and millions of dollars, and they live like peasants. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable to me. I mean, they drive crappy cars. All day long, they're cranky and miserable and depressed. The only thing they spend money on is going to their psychoanalyst, you know. And their psychoanalyst is cranky and depressed because they're a pretty good hypnotist. And they don't know it. To me, being able to think, well, what's going to make the mind so that it gets rid of things? How do people forget things? I used to ask people in school. When I was in school, there were a lot of students that weren't good at taking tests. I'm really good at it. I can take tests in courses I've never had and pass them. I did it in college just for fun. I wrote a term paper claiming that was possible in a logic class, and the professor said, that's crazy. And I said, if you take the syntax of sentences, you can pretty much tell what the answer to them is. You know, and I said, and if you actually look at the pattern of answers you know, you can predict what the others will be based on the answers, not even reading the questions. And so he gave me 3 tests in courses I hadn't had, and in one of them I got the highest grade. Think about that. What does that say about this guy's teaching? But you see, to me, I looked at it as a logical task, not as an educational task. To me, the most important thing is not how well you test in something, but how well you do something. And to me, this is the big difference. And the thing I've always been good at is stopping and thinking, okay, how did these people fail the test? And they go, well, when I start to think about things, everything blurs in my mind. So I started going, well, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Maybe there are some things that are worth being a little bit blurry about. Don't you think? And maybe not just one thing, but a couple of things. You know, certainly there are things I've blurred out in my mind. And I think because these kinds of things can build up to the point where they build real limitations. They interfere with your relationships. They interfere with the way you treat your children. Because crappy things happen to you, sometimes we make it so that we don't give our children a chance to learn on their own and to do things their own way. Too many adults are trying to direct their children's lives. And, you know, if you direct your children's lives into something they don't want to do. A friend of mine, his father was a lawyer, his grandfather was a lawyer, so they made him go to school and become a lawyer, and he hates being a lawyer. He's a miserable. But now that he's a lawyer and he's married, he's got kids, and he's got payments, he's going, there's nothing I can do. Well, that's not true. You can always do something. If you hate what you do, it isn't worth doing. You can always find something that will be better. But you see, if you strap yourself in by going, well, you know, if I quit the law firm, my father would disown me. Not if you went about it right. If you do it just right, your father will probably fire you from the law firm. As soon as I brought that up, the wheels began to roll in his mind. You know, how could he, you know, and it's true, all he has to do is make big enough mistakes, you know, and his dad's going to go and talk to him and say, son, have you ever considered a career in medicine? And in fact, that's what happened to him. His dad decided that maybe being a lawyer wasn't the right thing. You know, yeah, he just made some huge mistakes. It's called in the United States malpractice. And as the malpractice suits got filed, his dad said that he should either consider two things. One, working for another law firm, or two, he would send him back to school and let him try something else. So he went back to school and became a doctor. And he's pretty happy being a doctor. He likes it. He actually is a general practitioner now in a remote area. He's not even in a big hospital because he doesn't have to make a lot of money. His father's going to die and he'll get all of his. You know, how much money do you really need? You can only spend so much. And after that, it's really just a way of keeping score. And I think people forget that. But it's more important to make sure that the things that you do every day are things that make your life better and make the people that are around you's lives better. That should be 10 minutes, don't you think? Why don't you guys go and take 20 minutes, have a nice coffee break. Anyway, somebody asked me here, they said, tell about I think it says bearable or beatable, I'm not sure, flirting techniques. All flirting is really based on the simple concept of come away closer. It's just learning to be fun. If you want to be a good flirt, you have to be somebody who glows and has a good time. And the best way to be like that is to feel good on the inside. If you have a good smile and you realize it's always best to make other people do the work. So when you go, if you want to meet people, the best thing to do is to look at them like this, and when they look back at you, go like this. And when they come over, say, what do you want? It never fucking fails. Every time they go, I thought you wanted something, and you go, well, I do, but I want to know what you want first. I'm just trying to be polite, but you can buy me a drink. And then if they go, okay, and you go, what? No movie? And they go, well, okay, I'll take you to the movies, and you go, and no dinner, I suppose, huh? And then you have to be clear and tell them you don't give conversation on the first date. Okay, somebody also asked me, how can you help someone to stop teeth grinding? But teeth grinding, that's where people go all the time. It's just one of many bad habits that people have. I just had woman in a seminar that bites the inside of her lip, like this all the time. Because some people develop bad habits. There are some people bite their fingernails. One of the dirtiest habits you could possibly have. I mean, if you think about it, people wipe their ass and then go down the banisters and places, and you put your hand down the banister, and then, so when you're biting your fingernails, you're actually sticking their shit in your mouth. Yeah. So how do I get people to stop doing stuff like that? By talking about how disgusting it really is. People who grind their teeth, you know, people won't listen to them because we're supposed to listen to them, not throw them around. That's a delicate equipment. That most of the habits like that, I find the best thing to do is to get people first to stop, because people worry about habits too much. These kinds of things, and the best thing to do is, like if people have nervous twitches in their faces, all of these things are involuntary responses. People grind their teeth, not consciously. They don't go, well, it's 2 o'clock, I think I'll grind my teeth. That, you know, this is something that where they built up an unconscious motor program. It's no different than a handshake. You go to Japan and you stick your hand out and nobody else does. You know, but it doesn't mean that you stop doing it. You still do it every time you walk up to somebody, because we've been doing it for years. To begin to get these things, these unconscious programs to stop, the first thing you have to do is start laughing about them. And this is part of a chemical process that has to do with learning. And it's not just about habits, but you see, when you start laughing, you release endomorphine into your system. This is free drugs. And that, to me, one of the important things about habits, whether it's nail biting or any of these things, and nervous twitches, is that people stop feeling bad about it. Because whenever you're stressed out, you're less likely to get through these things. So to me, the magic thing is first I tease them about it until they start laughing. Then I put them in a trance, and I start relaxing them, especially when it has to do. Most teeth grinding comes from these muscles right here on the side of where the mandible is, where the jaw sits inside. And that what it has to do with is not the teeth. It really has nothing to do with teeth. It's just the outcome of it is your teeth grind. But in order to grind your teeth, you have to move the muscles. That's the way it works. So instead of focusing your attention on your teeth, you have to get people to relax these muscles here. Everybody who's a teeth grinder, you'll look at them and they have like 2 marbles. And so one of the things I do is I put my hands on either side of their face, and I tighten my hand up. I don't push. I just tighten my hands up so that the surface of their skin is covered with my hands really tight. And then I start relaxing my hands. And when you touch the part that's tense and you relax, if it starts to relax, relax more. If not, tighten your hand up more. Inside of a few minutes, you can get almost any muscle to relax. It's just the nature, because muscles don't relax because of the muscles. They get the information from the surface of the skin. And so what I do is, while I trance people out, I literally, with my fingers, put my hands on their face and get them to start relaxing those muscles. And as long as I'm relaxing the muscles and I'm putting them in trance, I start giving them suggestions about the fact that we have lots of habits. That when we're little kids, we have the habit of babbling. We go, blah, 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 blah. But most of us stop doing that after a while. That, you know, that when you're a little kid, you always go a lot because you spend a lot of time sucking on breasts. And as you get older, some people aren't lucky enough that they spend that much time doing that. in which case, you know, that habit fades away. And that if you realize that the job of your unconscious is to sort out behaviors and to let behaviors you don't need anymore start to fade away. And I set up finger signals with people and get their unconscious to take responsibility for it, give them every suggestion under the sun, and if you get the muscles in the face to relax so their face feels different. And in fact, I'll put them in a trance and do everything I can to get all the muscles in their face to relax so that they feel differently, and then tell them to start with a different feeling and to start doing new things. And then I'll bring them out of trance, and the minute they start to grind their teeth, then I'll do things like I'll set up a signal so that I can just go like this, and they'll stop. And after I use it, then I have their unconscious set up the same signal. Just like I did with the guy here tapping him on his finger. I made an anchor on his knee. Most of you noticed that. I tried to make it as obvious as possible. You guys see it? Good. Is there anybody that missed it? Right. That's why. But you see, the nice thing is, see, a lot of people set up anchors and they don't really use them as much as I think they can be. It's not that you just fire an anchor once and hold on to it. That the best way to fire anchors is repeatedly. Because each time you fire it, it fires off. So you can stack them on top of each other. And I find that a lot of times when people anchor, they think of it as a switch instead of a human response. It's like the more you're flirting, the more you smile at people, the more they smile back at you. Now, I'll tell you something about flirting, too. The best people to flirt with are the ones you're married to. Yeah. A lot of people forget to flirt with the person they're married to, and that's a big mistake. Once you're married, then you get to enjoy it a lot more than if you're not. I mean, whether you're married legally or not doesn't matter to me. I'm not talking about the government intervention. Because lots of couples live together now, and they don't get some priest to say that it's okay. But priests don't have sex with anybody anyway, so they don't know anything about it. I found out that Catholics, actually it was Robert Dilts that told me this. Robert Dilts was getting married years ago, and he told me he was going to a Catholic retreat before he got married, in which they were going to tell you about sex. And I said, who do they have tell you about that, Robert? And he said, well, they have priests. And I said, they don't have sex, Robert. How the hell can they tell you about it? And he said, well, there's a Catholic tradition, and I said, what tradition is that, Robert? And he said, well, I don't know. I haven't been yet, Richard. And I said, well, I said, if it's good, will you tell me about it when you get back? I said, just in case there's anything I missed, I like to leave no stone unturned. And he got back, and I said, do you know all about sex now? And he said, well, I knew about sex before I went. And I said, well, that's because you're not a good Catholic. And he said, well, actually, I am a good Catholic because you can do things and be forgiven. And he said, and I've been quite forgiven. But he told me that they didn't tell him anything new. And so I told him a few things, and he looked at me like, really? But I don't come from a Catholic tradition. I don't lick cats no matter anything. It's just not one of the things I like doing. I like petting them, but I don't really like licking them. Cats lick themselves. You don't really need to do that. But I find that when you mix up relationships and religion, you can get in deep trouble, because religions try to dictate to people how they should behave, and if you use instead a guide what makes you happy to guide your behavior, you'll always be better off. And remember, you can always lie to priests. They're not very good at telling whether you lie or not. They don't have truther inside those confessional booths. And so, you can always go in there and say, oh, yeah, I sinned, and make stuff up, And then they can forgive you for things you haven't done. On the other hand, if they start to dictate, what you should do. Think about it, the government in the United States, every state has laws about stuff. And I mean, there are states that dictate what married couples can do in the privacy of their own bedroom. But how the hell are they going to enforce that? Just think about it, I mean, what do? They have the marriage police come by and spy through your window? I don't think so, although, the politicians probably would like that. But, in the privacy of your own life and in the privacy of your own mind, the nice thing about it is that's where you get to do things that exceed reality. I mean, to me, there's a real difference between imagining strangling somebody and strangling somebody. These are not the same phenomenon. And you need to be able to have those sorted out. For me, like the technique that I showed you this morning, I want to give you a chance to try that, because that technique does not just work by virtue of what you do. It works by virtue of everything we did yesterday. The reason it worked well with him is because I did everything we did yesterday at the same time. I don't know if you guys noticed that, but I have a tendency to take good feelings and spin them inside myself as much as possible. It's like I don't look at people and go, okay, think of a time where you really felt good. See, you can't do that. I mean, part of the hard part about what we do for a living, because I know some of you are therapists because you use the word therapy on the things you wrote for me. And as much as I give you a bad time, it's only because I am trying to change the way you think about people. That if you think about people like what's wrong with them, you're going to find out things that are wrong with them. And there's lots of things wrong with them. But most of them are there because they're learned behaviors. They're not there because that something went wrong, but because everybody lives their life. And some people have the same identical experiences and respond totally differently. Some people are beaten as children and they beat their own children. Some people are beaten as children and would never lay a hand on another kid because they never want them to feel the way they felt. And you see, and no matter which one they are, they still can learn more. And I mean, the idea that things are predetermined and things are caused is not the way humans are. Humans can change quickly. I think he demonstrated that. I mean, how long have you felt bad about that in the past? Whatever it was. Was it a number of years? Yeah. Over 5? Over 10? Shit. Over 15? How about 20? Damn, 20 years you felt bad about something. What did it take you, 2 minutes? But you see, nobody told you about it before. And you know, how many times a week do you think you felt bad about that?
I don't know, 5 to 7.
5 to 7 times a week for 20 years? That's 52 weeks. Think about it. You know, I mean, you know, that's a lot. You know, that's 240, 260 times a year, you know, over 20 years. That means you felt bad about that close to 3,500 times. That's a lot of times to feel bad about something. I mean, and that's just one thing. I mean, think about it. Numerically, that's astronomical. Now, think about it. If there was like 20 things he felt bad about that way, then we'd be talking about, you know, feeling bad, so, you know, 15,000 times you didn't need to. Because it's not the last 20 years that amazes me, it's the next 20. Because if you don't feel bad about this, 5 to 7 times a week for the next 20 years, you've now saved yourself 7,000 times of feeling bad. And that's just for one thing. I mean, think about it. Isn't that astronomical? That you can spend a few moments and not feel bad 7,000 times. Pretty cool, huh? Now, to me, the one thing is to realize it's not just the technique that does this. It's not just making the movie, spinning it backwards so that it goes round and round at the end of the beginning till it blurs. That's not all that makes it work. And the other thing that makes it work is from the moment I start doing things with people, I start making sure that I access good feelings inside them so I can get to them when I need them. I also know that at the moment I see anything, it doesn't matter when it comes, in the middle, the beginning, the end, it doesn't matter. The minute I see powerful responses, there's something that happened with him that I think you all saw. There's a moment at which he was running the movies backwards. And I said, now take the good movie and begin to spin it forwards. And he span it forwards, but all of a sudden his skin went flush pink. You remember that? Now, that's what it looks like when what you do works. I want you always to keep working till you see that. Because whenever you use a technique, you have to use it enough, and it's different with every person. That it's not just that you run it for 2 minutes. It's not how long you run it, but if you're running it and you're not getting that, then you need to run it faster. You need to stop it, run it in the opposite direction. Experiment. Size matters. Proximity matters. Whether it's color, whether it's black and white. You can always modify this same technique to make it more individual for the person, especially if you listen to them, because people will tell you things that you need to know. It's not just taking techniques. Even things like the swish pattern. Okay, this has become probably the most used technique that I've ever developed. The swish pattern is where you take a picture, right, and something that bothers you, okay? So that some people, like, they feel totally addicted to something. I had a guy one time that ate olives to the point where it made him sick. But he just ate olives day and night. That's all he did. And there's something in the olives was beginning to make him sick, and his doctor said to him, stop eating olives. And he literally said, I can't stop eating olives. And he said, can you hypnotize me and make it so I won't eat olives? And I said, well, rather than do that, I said, let's make it so that your mind isn't so compulsive. Because compulsions are a good thing for humans. We compulsively do things like when you walk in the morning and you pick up your toothbrush and brush your teeth, rather than picking it up and going, gee whiz, and wiping your ass with it. Because the next day when you brush your teeth, it won't be nearly as nice. So the fact that we build consistent learnings is a good thing. But what's not a good thing is when they get out of control. Now, with him, what I did is I had him see olives so that he felt that compulsion. And at the moment he had the picture, he had a big, bright picture of a huge thing of olives, and he just felt like he really wanted them. I took the picture, and I had him shrink it down to a little tiny one, and then pop it back up as a picture of being healthy and not dying of olive poisoning. And standing next to a bowl of olives and going, who cares? Now, the fact that he was attracted to the second picture, but basically it's back to chemistry. The swish pattern works whether you move it off into the distance and pull it up, whether you make it small and pop it back up. All of these swish patterns work by virtue of the fact you are instructing people at the unconscious level, not this. That's how it works. You see something that you really want, and then you change the picture so you don't want it so much. That when you make it transparent, when you make it off in the distance, all of these things decrease the amount of intensity of the feeling. And then you pull up another picture suddenly of something it's more worth wanting. This is how you change your mind. Now, I discovered this technique by asking people the following question: how do you change your mind? And people said, what? And I just asked people, I said, have you ever changed your mind about something? And they said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, like, have you ever decided that you weren't going to ride a bicycle to work, you were going to use your car? And you rode your bicycle every day, and then one day you decided you weren't going to do it, you were going to ride a car. How do you make those changes in your mind? Because the way in which people do things naturally is what works the best. The reason I was very effective with, for example, insomniacs. Insomniacs are people who can't go to sleep because they worry too much. They have a worry machine. They lay down at night and they go, Jesus, I have to get up at 8 in the morning and I know I won't be able to get to sleep. No, I'll never get to sleep. Jesus Christ. And then I'll be tired in the morning. Lovely suggestions to be giving yourself. And they sit there and they go, what time is it? They go, oh, God, it's 11. Now I've only got, oh, God, I've only got 8 hours to sleep. And, oh, 8 hours. Well, 8 hours will be enough if I could get to sleep, get to sleep, get to sleep, get to sleep. Oh, God. And they go, oh, Jesus, now it's 1 o'clock in the morning. Now I've only got 5 hours. I'm bound to be tired. And if I don't get to sleep soon, I'll really be tired. You know, so by the time they do fall asleep, or they do wake up, they're really tired. But then they're awake, but then they have to go to work, and they go, oh, God, I'm going to be late. And then they go to work, and they work all day, but they're kind of groggy all day, and they get home, and they say to themselves, well, I better go to sleep early tonight so that I get some sleep. And they lay down, and they stare at the ceiling, and they go, well, what if I can't sleep? If I can't sleep, I'll never be able to go to sleep. Never. Okay, well, that's a really good thing if you want to stay awake, but it's a way to be relaxed. It sucks. So what did I do when people came? They sent me some insomniacs.